markets, you can always tell if it's going to gap up to, if you get like this kind of monster close, like see how like you really start to ramp like into the close. Oftentimes, like if you ramp into the close like that, the next day like you'll get a gap up. You can, if the gaps bother you, then you can always kind of trade futures in the morning and kind of get some of that piece, or you just hold some overnighters or partial positions on some of your good trades. They'll typically gap up, later in the day too. At least when the market's in this kind of trend, that's just the nature of the beast. We're in a runaway market. Good morning. How's everybody doing? Castrata. What's going on? SPY, same type of deal, right? You got 1.5 point gap up in the markets. In the meantime, though, even if there's a lot of gaps in the market, there's a lot of stocks that are just moving around irregardless. I think a couple sectors to watch today. Keep an eye on the IBB. The IBB is your biotech sector. If you see here, you got a breakout, basically almost at a breakout that goes back from 2015. If this thing busts loose, then what you're going to want to do is really look at some biotech names. When IBB goes, you'll have a couple different things. The individual biotech names go, and then also you can play Labu. Labu is the 3x ETF for biotechs. You can see here, you're starting to kind of come out of range. If this thing kind of clears this spot here, you'll see it at maybe 62 by the end of the day. Couple days we could see 64. I know our swing trade or part-time trading group is already in this trade for the last couple days, anticipating the breakout of 65. I also like this one a lot. So if biotechs are going to go, what are some of the different names that we can watch? I think number one, top of the list is TNDM. You had a flat top breakout here, and then what you see here is like you've got just a big marination station sitting over the 9 EMA. You're starting to bust out of range. So that's called range expansion. When you get a consolidation and you come out and you have a range expansion, that's really, really powerful. It's only a 21 million share float. You have a really nice intraday range. I mean, you can see here it had from 80 to 74. So you got about 3.4, looks like 3.49 ATR. So it moves pretty well on an average basis. I think that's one biotech to keep an eye on. Crispy is another one. This is more of a bottoming setup. Up 8% yesterday, though. Fantastic. So you got almost like a W pattern over here, breaking over these EMAs. This one has, 61, 62 in the cards. It looks like it used to be a hot momentum stock, too. Just a couple months ago, it went from 35 to 75. So when we are looking to do that, when you see that kind of move, like that former momentum, then like when a stock finally evens out, which it's been, consolidating these and digesting these gains essentially. When a stock evens out, it can give you the same type of action before. The float on this one is tiny too, so when it moves, it really moves. This one looks really good too. So those are kind of the two main biotechs that I'm watching personally, because I think that those are going to have, look at the trend on this thing, right? $5 trend. You can't really beat that. XLRN is another one that's coiled up here. Watch for a range break here. This one, to me, is not a day trader, though. It's just too thin. So I got to leave that one alone for day trading, but, could be a kind of a couple day pop if it starts to break that range. One that I do like is, AXSM, which is another biotech stock. You've got yourself like a nice push over here. It coming out of range. Man, this thing is coiled up for a move. We know that this one also has a history of making moves. It's $14, ran to $110. Float on this is fairly low. If this thing starts to break range, this one's got really some juice on it. It looks almost like a swing trade too. I wouldn't be surprised to see this thing, if the IBB breaks, to get in at, get back into the 110s, if not, even higher. Hey, Mother Jones, how are you? So those are kind of the tour de jours of biotechs. Is anybody watching any that they like? that maybe I missed? There's a lot of them. What I usually do is like if you want to sift through a sector, what you want to do is like if you go in your TC2000 and you just type in biotech, like you'll have all this kind of stuff pop up. But I usually go to legacy industry groups, and then what you'll see here is like there's 150 names in the sector, and then I sort them 90-day, 30-day, 5-day, year-to-date, 6-month momentum. But what you want to do is just input a quick scan inside the list with some conditions. So like, do a volume condition and say like I want stocks over 500,000. So you want to put that's essentially a liquidity condition. And then you can do a price condition depending on what type of price you want to do. And you can do like 1 year range. So like, do you want top of the range, bottom of the range, price percentage of 30-day highs? Is it breaking a range again? 30-day high, 30-day low, price as a percent of 52-week highs. So if you're looking for ones that are specifically about to break out, right, you can do price as within 10% of its 52-week high. That would be a good way to just filter down a list if you're looking for stocks that got some like real heat. You could use EMAs like price above your 9-day moving average or price above your 20-day moving average. I would do 20 because that's something that's a little bit more intermediate. So you can add in all of those, different, you can add in like different parameters inside a list. Once you do that, just hit OK, hit scan. And so now see like you took the 150 name list into 34. And then essentially what you're going to do, and this is how I just go through my list, then what I'm doing is I'm like individually, right, going through and seeing what type of action, what type of charts could work if the individual sector is going to go. So that's what we call like a top-down approach to trading. Figure out what sectors are hot, and then individually through TC2000, bring up that sector list, run an individual scan inside it for parameters that you think are going to be good, that fit you. So, and then you want to just, start filtering through these. Like, see this is a nice bottoming play. CVM, this is also like a nice looking breakout. 1 test, 2 test, 3 test, 9 EMA right up under it. ESPR. So you see what you're starting to see here is like the sector really, really heating up. And so you may start to get some moves here. So if you're looking for like multi-day holds, that's a great way to do it. That's how I personally like to filter out my list. When you do it that way, you're going to get just the best. Like, see this? This is a nice breakout over here. Anything over 1469, that can work. And I'll go through all of them, because there's only 34, and you start to build this kind of list down. You can do that with anything. So, like, if you wanted to do that with technology, right, you can type in technology, and you'll get the same type of thing. Then apply an individual scan to it. If you want to do it with software, solar, whatever it might be, put it in the watch list section in TC2000 and then filter through them one by one. That'll give you a top-down approach, which is much more solid than just looking, at some gappers and then saying like, or something that has news and thinking that that's your strategy. That's one small piece of a strategy. Sometimes we get so caught up in, okay, I'm going to turn my trade idea scanners on, look at some gappers, and that's my list for the day. That's like 2% of trading. If you're just doing that, you're going to have a hard time being successful in trading because you're a one-trick pony. And a one-trick pony, yeah, you can make $1 or $2 here or there, but you're not going to be able to make like some serious moves because you're just a one-trick pony. So just keep that in mind. One other biotech to kind of keep an eye on. This PBY has had a nice 3-day pullback. Typically, when I look at pullback plays, a 3-day low volume pullback, tends to be very bullish. Like if it's not crashing and you just get an orderly 3-day pullback, man, like that's when you're gonna have yourself something that's like buyable. So I would keep an eye on this one. Watch and see if this thing starts to build out. It's due for a bounce now. And once again, we know, right, from looking at Labu, that the overall sector is about to go. And when you get the overall sector going, that's when, you're going to have the individual ones. If you ever look, like say you're trying to like play an oil stock, but like the sector itself is really weak and the overall structure of that particular sector is not showing along, the individual stock is going to have a hard time going. So just something to kind of keep in mind of. Let's take a look at some of the earnings plays. I didn't see any that I thought were like red hot. Hey Bobby, how are you? I didn't see anything that's red hot. This AMKR could be something. It's only 14 million share float. On Trade ID says 97 million though, so who knows which one's right. I'm guessing the Trade Ideas one is, because outstanding shares is 239. Anything over 14, I'm interested in this. Under 14, I'm not. And the reason is a lot of times these kind of earnings plays, when they gap up into resistance levels, they just fade off. And so that's not going to work for us. So anything over 14. This AutoNation used to be a really nice trender. It went from 35 to 55. You're starting to bust out over these two MAs here. This one I think is going to have... This one I think is going to have some... This one could have some heat. This one could have some heat. You see, like even in the pre-market, you got a nice range that's developing over here. I like this one. That one's going to be good. Yeah, I think that one's going to be good. None of these are A pluses though. Like Hasbro's got a range break here and a break over the 200 SMA. But it's Hasbro, they make toys, right? These kind of stocks, they don't have like the crazy range. When you think of stocks that have fresh news out, what are the two sectors that always move the best? When you think about stocks that have fresh news out, what are the sectors that have the best moves always? What are the two sectors? Biotech and tech. Biotech and tech, always, when you're looking at earnings plays, say you have 10 gappers, okay? Say you got 10 gappers, and you're trying to figure out how to narrow them down. Tech and biotech always move the best. Which one moves like the biggest turd? Like a turdzilla. Actually, healthcare is not bad either sometimes. Sometimes in certain markets. The worst is retail. The worst is retail and gold. Gold gaps, because gold just gaps at night anyways, so gold stocks gap around all the time. So when you see earnings plays on gold or retail, those are the worst. Tech and biotech are the best. Then you filter them by daily charts, float, volume, and then most importantly, do I have a history of, does this stock have a history of making moves? BYD is an IPO. IPOs also move. That's the third part. So after biotech and tech, IPOs are great. So new issues, stocks that have been around less than 2 years will run rampant. Good IQ. Dish Network is busting out a range here too. This is not a typically like a hot mover. It's got okay range pre-market, but this is like more of an established company. It moves a little bit slower. So-so on that one. Now, crowd I can get behind. What do you got here? What's this pattern here? So essentially, you just got a little flat top breakout developing over 65. In the pre-market, it's breaking over 65. So right now, we know that this thing has been released. When you're breaking over resistance, stocks will move a lot more clean. So you're already starting to get this. Now, this stock is not gapping up on any kind of news. It looks like it's just got a couple upgrades coming. So if this thing starts to cook, I don't want to chase it. I got to let it pull back to the 9 EMA, something along that end. Right? I needed to pull back to the 9 EMA and then go. So like a quick pullback buy setup. A quick pullback buy setup is a very, very simple setup that is just based on EMA so that you don't have to chase a stock. All right? So what you want to do on a quick pullback setup, and this is what I mean by what we want, this is the game plan for crowd. I want this kind of action. So like say you get an opening thrust. See how like this goes from 1890 to 1930, right? This is a 5-minute chart. When you pull back into the 9 EMA and you get a green candle to hold, that's your entry point, all right, with the stop under it. What that will do is allow you to just risk like 10, 20 cents without having to chase. The biggest portion and the best thing that you can do as traders is find ways to get asymmetric reward to risk scenarios. How can I get myself in a hot momentum stock without having to chase it? Remember this. How can I get myself in a heater without having to chase it, but also by risking just 10, 20 cents? So you let it push, you come back to the 9, and then you go. Then see, like once it pops, a lot of times people want to chase it. You don't. Let it pull back to the 9, green candle to hold, green candle to hold, and then you get the shred. Let it pull back and then shred. So when you see something like a crowd, and this will be the plan for LK also. So crowd is busting higher today. What we want to do is let it, you never want to chase crowd. S is a buyout, guys. S is a buyout. You never want to chase crowd. Let it pull back to the 9, get that candle to hold, and then it's a go. Does that make sense? Good. Same thing. I like LK today. You have a remount of these MAs. Now it's gapping up like $1.25. LK is also another one of those that you don't want it to chase. So what you got to do is same type of deal. Once it thrusts, see like yesterday, it thrusted from 330, 35. Once it thrusts, let it pull back to the 9 EMA. When you get the green candle to hold, see this? That's when you want to enter with the stop below the bottom of the range, and then you shred. But if you chase it, it's not going to work right. If you chase, you die. In a hot market, everything is flying around. Take a breath at the open, let stock pull back, and then let it go. Let it pull back and then go. That's how you're going to go. So that's the plan for LK. So crowd, LK, these are top of the list for today. Lift. Lift is a beautiful range breakout. You've got this bust loose over 50, and you broke over the 200 SMA yesterday, up 7%. An increase in volume. When you have a breakout, there are a handful of things that you need to see. Number one, you need a break of a range, right? You need a break of a range or a break of a moving average. The second part is you need to see, does this stock have a history of making moves? Like, can it move $3, $4, $5 in a day? Because I need that, right? If I'm going to day trade in and around that, then I need the range to be able to sashay back and forth. So does it give me that range? Yes. The second part, the last part is, does it have an expanding volume? High relative volume means that more and more people want it. And when you see that, what you have is a potential scenario where a stock can run for, days or even longer. So you can see here, like, this thing has been nice trender, but it also reacts really well to, moving averages and stuff like that. So that one looks pretty good. Guys, there's big news today. We've had Roku on our ban list for months. It's been on our ban list for months because Roku has been moving for months like a big, gelatinous, giant, smelly, Indian-style turd. And finally, it looked like yesterday it was starting to move clean. You can see what I mean by clean is like, is it reacting to the things that we like? You can see after the push yesterday, right? Pull back to the 9, green candle to hold, shred, pull back to the VWAP, shred. It's moving in ways that react well to what we like to do. And when a stock does that, that's interesting to me, right? That's interesting to me. So you've got like a wedge that's been developing for a while. You're starting to come out of that. Now it's gapping up $4. What is the rule of Roku always? Why was it on our ban list? It was on our ban list because it's a big turd. If you chase Roku, it never works. If you chase Roku, it never ever works. It really just doesn't. It spikes up and just dies. So what I need to see is a pullback either to the 9 EMA or 20, or let the gap fill. What I mean by let the gap fill is, like, oftentimes you'll see this, like with Tesla. Like, it may gap up and then it just comes all the way back and like fills the gap. And then like you start to round and then you'll push off later. So let the gap fill, round, and push off later. Roku does that a lot too. I think it's because they're just larger companies. Roku's like a $15 billion company. It will do that a lot. So Roku's on the list too. Crispy. This is another biotech stock that I really like, right? You got this. First of all, I know this stock has range. It went from 35 to 75. 35 to 75, so it's got a history of making moves. The float on this is very small. Outstanding shares, 54 million. Float. This float number seems wrong, but it's low. 6 to 10, okay? We have 1.5 million shares in volume, but we have all-day trender. I need to know if a stock is going to be able to give me range. This one's got range. That one looks good. So what do we got? We got Roku, Crowd. Those are the faves. Couple ones to watch beyond that. Space for a day 2 play. We had a nice shred on this yesterday. I think that, we'll have another. I wouldn't be surprised to see this thing at 24, 25, 26 bucks in the matter of, the next week or so. This is a hot momentum stock. And this market right now just loves like these random companies that, nobody's ever heard of, that just are like IPOs. You can see this thing is pretty new issue for a while. So this thing's got some heat on it, So we want to be, first pullback on this, I want to hit it. If it pulls back just like yesterday, like see how it spikes and then pulls back to EMAs, I'm adding that one. All right, so TNDM, Crowd, Lyft, Roku, Space. Some secondary ones to watch would be SQ, and then of course watch all the biotech sectors. ZM is a nice one. I do have it on my list. It could go any day. My issue is that it's been just kind of grinding. See, it's up 4 days in a row, but it hasn't really moved. And you're still a little bit away from the 9 EMA. So I'm a little bit, 50-50 on that one, but it does have a nice range. Man, I had TC1000 show me that BYD had earnings out today, but it hasn't moved yet. So I'm not sure what's going on this one, but that's the list, guys. We need to make sure that, make sure that you're really getting good entries. Don't chase these things. Hey, Elise, how you doing? These IPOs like Rain and Onem look both, I think they're both worth watching. This Onem probably needs to come down a little bit, though. Ryan, ABBV is like a little bit of a thicker stock, but it's up too many days in a row to try to long now. It's got to pull back. It's not up enough to. It's not up enough to like necessarily short. So you got to just be a little bit careful with that too. Crispy. Yeah, we got TNDM. All right. So that's the list. I'm sticking to it. Trade well today, guys. As always, let's not trade all day. I'll be in the Bulls on Wall Street chat room, hopefully till just 1 p.m. today. But who knows? If things get hot, I'll stick around all day, and we'll do what we do. All right, let's go have some fun, guys.